can you talk about how you marry science with like practical experience and self-experimentation, or how you recommend others do it?
Yeah. Well, the whole N=1 phenomenon, I started doing those like 2007, 2008. I remember at the time there were like low carb breads out there, and there was low carb pasta. I don't want to name names because they're horrible companies. I don't want to give them a free plug, but let's just say they were very popular at the time, and they're kind of ish still around today.
Sure.
And so I decided with the bread one, okay, I'll get their bread. I'll get Wonder Bread. I'll get whole wheat bread, and kind of do an experiment and do side-by-side comparison of blood sugar. Because back in the late 2000s, that's all you had. We didn't even have CGMs yet, but I could prick my finger and do these experiments. And I kind of showed a similar spike and then fall into hypoglycemia with all of them, including the so-called low-carb bread. Same with the low-carb pasta. It was exactly the same. And so I started doing that. I even did a sweet-free challenge where I just cut out anything sweet on the tongue, not just sugar, but if it was just something, quote, natural that tasted sweet, even down to like almonds had a sweet taste to them. So I cut them out. So anything sweet and did that little challenge. For me, doing an experiment is all about just what can you quantify? Is there something about what you're doing that you can quantify? You know, people love to step on a scale. I'm not as interested in quantification of weight as much as I am blood sugar and other markers. So that's kind of the starting point, I would say, for most people. Find what you want to quantify about something and then see how you do. So let's just say, for example, one of the popular things in the carnivore community right now is we should add some fruit back into the carnivore diet. Several of the carnivore people have done that. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Do you want to know if that's right for you? So here's what you do. You test your blood sugar at baseline, which means before you've eaten, and then get that number, write it down. Then you have your meat and your fruit, or your meat and your honey, and see how you do. 1 hour after that, test again. That's called 1 hour postprandial. And then 2 hours after your meal, test again. That's 2 hours postprandial. 1 hour postprandial probably should not have gone up more than, say, 25, 30 points. Okay. Right. And then 2 hour postprandial should be back to baseline again. So what that's showing is the insulin doing what it's supposed to do? Insulin's job is when you see glucose go up, you bring it back down into line. If it doesn't come back close to, and I mean within like 5 points of your baseline blood sugar, that's not a food that's right for you. That's a food that you're having what's called blood sugar dysregulation. The insulin is not responding the way it's supposed to. You have some level of insulin resistance that's making that insulin have to work harder to bring your blood sugar back down. And by a study that came out about 3 years ago, 87% of people fall in that spectrum of insulin resistance, either from very minor to very severe, but 87%, that's 9 out of 10 people.
Yeah.
And so most people aren't going to be able to do well with the meat and fruit diet or a meat and honey diet. Right. If you can, I hate you, but good job. But most people can't. And the only way you can test that, Scott, is to do the test for yourself.
Right. Absolutely. I tell that to so many people, asking me what's the perfect macronutrient ratio, how many
meals, such thing.
Calories. Yeah.
Right.
Try it. Try it for 2 weeks. Be honest with yourself. Yes. Document it.
Yes.
See how you feel. See how you look. See how you perform.
And subjectively, just like check in with yourself.
Yeah.
Are you energetic? Are you able to go long periods of time without eating? Are you thinking clearly? Like, do you just kind of feel good generally? Or do you feel kind of blah? Do you notice that you're getting tired? Do you notice that you're having little subtle pains come back into your body? Those are the things that I think we don't underscore enough. We all want to look at weight. We all want to look at blood sugar and different other things that are quantifiable that way. But sometimes it's the subjective things that can tell this tale of what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. you'll know if it's not working. And what's one thing? I mean, I'm sure there are a million things, but what's one big thing you've changed your mind on in the last 12 months, Jimmy?
Oh, easily protein. I used to be, all right, let's moderate down on the protein some. And I've got a lot of hell from this in the online world.
Sure.
When I wrote Keto Clarity and I said low carb, moderate protein, high fat, people thought I was gorging on sticks of butter and
Ridiculous.
Saying not to eat any protein at all. Yeah. And I'm going, no, that's my purpose in telling people to eat more fat was they're fearful of fat. And so when you tell people to eat more fat, that's giving them permission to, they're not going to gorge it. They're just going to finally eat the right amount. But the thing that's changed, Scott, to your question is I don't worry about hitting some fat goal. I eat protein and I've been carnivore for about 3.5 years now. I eat proteins and get the natural fats that come with that protein. Yeah, I'll add a little bit of butter sometimes. I'll add, just itty bits of fat here and there, but it's not this, oh my gosh, I got to get, 10% more fat in my diet or I'm not doing it right. Yeah, no. So no, I worry about anything regarding excess protein because that protein I know is that foundational macronutrient that we should all be prioritizing.
Right. Yeah. I never understood why people strawman you so much on this, by the way.
There's Jimmy Moore haters for whatever their reason. I get it. I don't look the part that they want me to look. And I honestly can't control a lot of that. I do have things that I do to try to make the needle move. And I feel like I'm one of those people that I probably was meant to be dead by now. And, people say, that's kind of morbid, Jimmy. I'm like, my brother died at 41, morbidly obese, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, killed him. And I'm pretty much the same body as him. And yeah, I'm still here. I'm still standing. And I am. And I am not ashamed of who I am. And I get a lot of hell for how I am. But I know how I feel. My brain works 1,000,000 miles an hour. Something good is happening because of my lifestyle choices. And while it may not show up on a scale, it sure shows up in other areas.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're helping thousands of people and you've helped so many. So good for you for not letting the haters slow you down. And there's always going to be that 1%, no matter what you do.
That's right.
Is there anything you wish you could change about your old writings or your old books?
Well, other than the protein question that we just mentioned, I would have definitely emphasized protein a little more in, say, Keto Clarity. Changed? No, because look, that's what I knew at the time.
Yeah.
And I think if we can't evolve our thinking over time, then we're not really being true citizen scientists, because that's what I kind of see myself as. And I want to encourage everyone listening right now. Look at yourself as a citizen scientist. You're researching, you're looking into things, you're using your cognitive skills to come up with what you think is right for you now. Does that mean it'll be the same 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Probably not. And so be okay with being certain of what you know right now, but then being willing to change when new evidence presents itself or when circumstances change in your life. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are different. I'll go to the fasting thing, for example. So what was it? 12 years ago, 12 or 13 years ago, I interviewed Dr. Tom Seyfried, the big cancer researcher with ketogenic diets.
Yeah.
And at the end of our podcast, he kind of threw in this throwaway line of, yeah, if you want to prevent cancer, just go on a 7 to 10 day fast once a year. And of course, it was the end of the show. And when you're kind of winding down the show, you're already in like exit mode. And I was like, well, that's all the time we have for the Living a Fetal Low Carb show. I didn't know what to say at that point. I was just so dumbfounded. But I dwelled on that for the longest time going, fasting, why would I starve myself? My God, how stupid is that? Famous last words, because 8 years later, I write a best-selling fasting book.
Yeah, wow. That's
But it
hilarious.
just goes to show you that your perception of any given topic will change as you continue to learn. What I thought was starving myself actually was me just not being educated enough on what periods of not eating look like and what was happening metabolically inside the body. And once you get knowledge, once you gain understanding of things, then things come into clear view a little more and you embrace them. And then you might be like Jimmy Moore and you start proselytizing about them. And I still love fasting, and it's a practice that I highly encourage people to do. Whereas 12 years ago, I'd have been like, "You'd be crazy if you fast, because that doesn't make sense to me."
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. I think that's the scientific mindset, really.
Yes.
And let's talk a bit about fasting, since you are the expert. Why are you so passionate about it, and what are some of the benefits people should be aware of?
I feel like it's gotten a black eye over the years. Now, recent years, fasting has come on strong in the culture, but fasting has had such a negative perception of at so many angles. You're starving yourself, I guess, is a big one. You're depriving your body of so many nutrients, all nutrients. You're going to lose muscle and leach muscle and da 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 da. Again, like I was just saying, I think it all goes back to we have been fed so many lines about it rather than really looking at it objectively. And if you take a look at what happens in a totally fasted person versus, here, let me say this, Scott, versus someone who eats a hypocaloric diet. So let's say somebody eats 800 calories, and there are people out there right now on a daily basis eating 800 calories. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're a woman, a man, 800 calories, too damn low in calories. And so when your body needs a certain amount of calories in a day, not that I think calories are the bee's knees, but let's just use it as a standard. If you eat a certain amount of calories, I think a woman, for example, probably should be around 1,500, no less than a day, unless there's other extenuating circumstances. And for men, probably no less than, like, say, 1,800 to 2,000 as a bare minimum. So when you go under that, you're telling your body, all right, I'm feeding. Why isn't he feeding me more? And you kind of set off this chain reaction of survival mechanisms. Oh no, we are actually starving by under eating. And so the body kind of doesn't know what to do with that. Whereas when you don't eat any food at all, the body is equipped for that. The body knows how to handle. Oh, okay, it's a fasting day. Pancreas, hey, we're going on vacation until the dummy decides to give us some food again. So the pancreas gets to relax. Right. You have a growth hormone boost. You have insulin come down. You have all these amazing things. Autophagy begins. All of these amazing things start to happen. And here's the funnest one, Scott. And yes, I'm excited about this topic. The funnest one is you see a boost in your metabolism of 12%. People are like, oh, you're going to slow your metabolism. It goes up. It boosts it 12% simply by not eating for a period of time. So that could be an intermittent fast. It could be an OMAD, 1 meal a day. It could be an alternate day fast, 36-hour fast, or even some of these extended fasts. I did an 18-day fast earlier this year. And yeah, I mean, after you get through that initial kind of difficult period, primarily day 2, sometimes into day 3, the rest of the fast is pretty easy by comparison. And so I think so many misconceptions about fasting have made this topic so hard to educate on. But once you learn and see the benefits that it gives you, you can't help but embrace it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really well said and summarized. And do you think there's a right time for someone to start fasting?
Yeah, when you're ready, mentally, physically, when your life isn't chaotic. If your life is a mess, which unfortunately a lot of our lives are kind of all the time, and that's a whole nother issue. That get your life unstressed as much as you can. I realize those of you that have kids, that's a challenge. Those of you, struggling, financially, struggling, keeping a job, blah blah blah. There's always going to be stressors out there. So try not to do a fast when you're in a highly stressed state, because fasting itself is a stressor. And so